Welcome to this series of videos in which we take a close look at all 9 tiles and all 27 elements of the instruction manual. This video looks at the first element of tile 2, habits. The thing about habits is that they begin very early. It takes time to create a habit. You need to do things over and over and over again to create a habit, to the point where you don't even think about it anymore. Cleaning your teeth is a very good example of a good habit that we've accumulated over time. But at the beginning, we had to be forced to do it to the point where we no longer need to think about it. Now, at the extreme end of that, there are blind spots, aspects of our behavior that we don't even realize that we're doing, but that are visible to other people. And everything about this work is geared towards seeing things as clearly as possible, including those blind spots, which is why you kind of need people to tell you certain things, which is all to do with awareness. So if you need to go back to that, go back to the tile 1 videos and check those out, and you'll understand a little bit more about why it's important to see things as clearly as possible. Now, I'll give you an example of something that happened to me a few years ago, which explains a little bit about the difference between nature and habit. Because one of the things we do with these patterns, with this conditioning, with these habits that I'm talking about, is that we identify ourselves very closely with them. We associate ourselves with our habits. We believe ourselves to be our behavior. So the example I want to talk about is I spoke to Courage, my teacher, 2014, about my introverted nature. And I said to him, I'm an introvert by nature. He snapped back as quickly as he normally does and said, no, you're not an introvert by nature, you're an introvert by habit. And that got me thinking, because all along I thought to myself, this is who I am. I'm an introvert. I've seen what extroverts are like, and I'm not like that. Sometimes I wish I were, but this is who I am. Later on in life, there was even more reinforcement of that habit. Let's call it a habit for now, because I moved abroad and I spent time in Germany, learning a language, not really being able to communicate so easily with people, and struggling to begin with before I learned the language with exactly that, communicating with other people. Maybe I would then withdraw a little bit more than I would have done had I lived in England all that time. And it's certainly the case that when I go back to England, it's a lot easier for me to engage with people in my mother tongue than in other languages. Now, over time, I spent 10 years in Germany. Over time, that reinforces itself and creates a habit. For me, we were already building on a certain element of introversion. So it didn't take too much effort for that habit to become such a solid part of who I am that I identify with that. I am an introvert, but it's not true. I heard an interview with somebody once. He was a maths professor, I think, an English guy working in America. And if anybody could help me with his name in the comment, I'd really appreciate it. But I remember him saying, I realized I was an introvert when I was 15, 16, and I changed. And he became an extrovert. So my point here is, just because we think we are one way, it's not necessarily the truth. And we'll see more about that in tile 9. As you go through these tiles, and certainly when you get to tile 9, you realize that you're not your habits, you're not your patterns, you're not your conditioning. And that realization starts here, because the more you see things clearly, who you are, or at least how you behave, the more you realize that actually that's not who you are. These things were given to you when you were younger, as far as your condition is concerned. Your habits you picked up from your environment. And there's also, we'll look more at it in the conditioning video, there are decisions that you make. So it's not just a passive acceptance of your environment here. You're making decisions at a very early age. Even pre-language, you're making decisions based on how you see the world, how you think the world works, and how you can get your needs met. So that's where these habits form. They form very early on, which is, it's unsurprising then when you see it that way, that you have these blind spots, that you have these automatic elements of who you are, who you believe yourself to be, that you don't even realize you're doing. You've been doing it for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, decades in some cases. But as soon as you see things clearly, and that's what this tile is all about, as soon as you see them clearly, they start to shift. They become more flexible, more malleable somehow. And then all you're doing is it's like molding clay, I suppose. You know, you think you've got this hard concrete in your hand that you can't do anything with. But when you look at it, it softens. And then you can start to reshape things. So to summarize, habits begin very early in life. and you're repeating behaviors over and over again to the point where they become automatic, which means that you don't realize you're doing them. And especially when you're talking about blind spots. So again, at that extreme, you need people to tell you, go to trusted people, speak to them, ask them what they see, and listen to them when they talk to you. They will help you to complete the picture, which is all about tile 4 as well. But they'll see things that you can't see, and they'll tell you if you ask them. And that will help you to see yourself more clearly. Because when you do that, and again, this is another point I need to stress, when you do that, then the work has already begun. You're already started to shift. So don't be in a hurry to get to tile 3 and start doing things. You're already doing half the work just by seeing things. So if you've enjoyed watching this video, be sure to check out the other videos for tile 2 and have a look at the first videos from tile 1 as well. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.